Wynncraft is loaded with dungeons, all of which have unique rewards that honestly tend to be overlooked the majority of the time. So what if those rewards were all I could use? In this series, I will not be allowed to use any weapons, armor, accessories, or elemental powders that were not acquired as a reward from completing dungeons. For the sake of making the challenge a little more fun, I'm considering boss altars to be a type of dungeon, and as such I'm able to use unique drops those bosses have. This is the Dungeon Master Challenge. I hope you enjoy. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Dungeon Master Challenge. This is episode number 6, and this episode is gonna be a journey. I have probably the longest grind that I'm going to have on this entire account ahead of me for this episode. We're gonna hold off on that for a little bit. First things first though, we're gonna go ahead and do this quest, that way we can access the Barrows Dungeon. Gimme staff. Have the staff, sir. How'd I convince them to give it up? I stole it. There we go, Fate of the Fallen completed. Got another dungeon key and a helmet that I can't use because it's not a reward from the dungeon. So we got 5 keys in total. I'm not sure what all from this dungeon will be useful for me though. Got wolves attacking me. Potion of Wisdom could be interesting. Uses the fragments. I need to complete it enough times to buy 3 of the 4 tools with 3 fragments each, so I need to complete it at least 4 times to buy the tier 6 tools. Before I attempt this dungeon, I want to get a better obelisk. So the one that I have has health regen at 47 and lifesteal at 29. I can get it up to 55 and 49 respectively. I don't really care about the soul point regen, loot bonus, or XP bonus on this. I only care about the health regen and lifesteal. And that should help make this dungeon a little bit easier if I have more of that. So I'm going to go and I'm going to fight the Rotten Passage a few more times to get a better version of this chest plate. And goodbye after many rerolls. We got ourselves a slight upgrade. Not as good as I want, but it's better than nothing. But we got it eventually. I just did batches of 2. Just 2 at a time. Alright, I guess it is time to move on. Alright, time has come to do the Barrows Dungeon. I'm actually going to not be using my Hasher Claw for this dungeon, and instead I'm going to use the Jawbreaker, simply because the boss of the dungeon is weak to earth damage, and this has quite a good amount of that. So we're going to go ahead and respec so that we can throw all 30 of these, well, not 30 because there's like a few points from a piece of armor I'm wearing, but most of these 30 points over into a little bit of agility, a little bit of defense, and a little bit more strength. Alright, there we go. We've respec'd now. Should be pretty decent. Changed out our helmet for the Dune Beast Jaw, which gives me a little bit more health, and then it gives me that extra bit of strength as well, because this one was just giving me neutral damage and then thunder damage. Alright, I guess it's time to tackle this dungeon. Fingers crossed that it goes well for us. We're doing this first attempt without using any crafted consumables to see if I need them. And if the first attempt doesn't go well, then I'll go ahead and get me some. I know this weapon is very slow attack speed, but that is fine for my needs. I don't need to be sitting here spam clicking everything when most all these enemies are going to get one shot. Let's go ahead and fight him. Boss time. There we go. And level 49. There's the Barrows Dungeon completed. Our next order of business is going to be the Canyon Condor quest. I'm not going to complete it because completing the quest will give me another item that gets trapped in my inventory that I'm not going to cheat to remove. And so we're going to have to be careful with that. Nope, I want that beacon. And so we have to go over here to the point to where he gives us access to cross his bridge to head over and fight the Canyon Condor itself. And then as soon as we have access to go fight it, we just don't bother, and then we can head over and attempt this boss altar. Hello there, hermit. Need a rare flower. Sure. I'll bring you your flower. I brought you your rose, sir. Alright, there we go. So now I have to kill the cockatrice, but I do not care about that. I now have access to the boss altar that is over here. Sunrise Canyon boss altar, which I have to reach by using that little cart thing. Fuck! So close. I didn't have any mana. I didn't get a chance to go use the mana potion because I had just run out. Nah, it's not. It's not gonna happen. I'm gonna resort to my alternative grind because there's no way that's gonna happen. Why am I in Turnips, of all places? Anyway. Actually, it's kind of a convenient place for me to be. My grind, my obnoxious grind that I wish to go for, is quite simple. I can't really do it right now, but I want to get myself a chestnut horse, first and foremost. Alright, black. Yes! Finally, Jesus! We still have a brown and a black left over that I can attempt to breed, or I can just get rid of. Down to 3 liquid emeralds left, so I just used another 11, so it took me, well, just shy of 11, I think. And so it took me about 31, half a stack of liquid emeralds to get 1 chestnut horse. And that's not even the worst part. That's phase 1. In this episode, I had 2 goals. I needed to defeat the Barrows Dungeon, and I needed to defeat the Sunrise Canyon boss altar. Up until this point, I've had so little gear available to me that I basically had a single viable option for every slot, but I've now reached a point where I can start to get several options of gear to use, and while some are objectively better than others, I want to try and find a way to make use of some of the weaker pieces of gear. So I decided that I would not allow myself to use any gear that is a higher level than the level of the challenge I'm currently facing. For the Barrows Dungeon, that is level 45, and for the Sunrise Canyon, that is level 40. This means that I cannot complete the Barrows Dungeon a dozen times and get some upgrades to better assist in the Sunrise Canyon fight, and I must rely on equipment that is available before that. I went into this episode knowing that the Sunrise Canyon was the major hurdle for this series. This boss is incredibly powerful to the point to where it can currently kill me in 2 hits effortlessly. This boss also fights with a bow, so it can kill me at a range far enough away that I'm not capable of fighting back. So the strategy with this boss on Assassin is simply to kite the boss and run in circles around it, firing off smoke bombs and letting them take him out gradually. The problem here is that if I focus on being strong enough to kill him quickly, I'm not fast enough to avoid his arrows and I die. If I focus on running faster, I run out of sprint before the boss dies, and I get absolutely demolished as I'm rendered basically immobile. So I needed to change my gear setup to one that would better allow me to fight this boss, but with this heavily restricted selection of items that I can use, there was very little I could change. The gear from the Barrows Dungeon would make this fight considerably easier, but as I'm not allowing myself to use any of it, I need to think of something else. And so I turned to a piece of the challenge rules that I placed an extra personal restriction on simply for the sake of making the challenge more fun for me. The restrictions for this challenge state that I can't use any weapons, armor, or elemental powders unless they are obtained as a reward from a dungeon. But there is one part of the dungeon reward that I've not actually addressed yet. As you all know, upon completing a dungeon you are given a reward. The reward is experience, one of the dungeon's high tier currency that you use to buy weapons, armor, accessories, and horse upgrades, 3 dungeon fragments that you use to buy elemental powders, teleport scrolls, gathering tools, and potions, and lastly, falling emeralds. These falling emeralds are actually incredibly important for this challenge, and even more so for this boss altar specifically. These can be converted into actual items instead of being simple emeralds, and this is what makes them so important. But before you say, wait, Chaos, doesn't that completely defeat the point of this challenge if you can just get anything you want from these falling emeralds? And you would be exactly correct. Which is why I set the rule to where the falling emerald loot that isn't emeralds or potions is restricted as to what you're allowed to use from it. For starters, the elemental powders are not allowed, as that completely defeats the challenge of having little to no decent tier elemental powders available before the Undergrowth Ruins dungeon. Second, the random normal to legendary items are not allowed, as they go against the spirit of the challenge as a whole and would render it far too easy. What does that leave, you might ask? Dungeon exclusives, fabled items, and mythics. If I'm lucky enough to get a fabled or a mythic from the falling emeralds specifically, they will be permitted in this challenge. These 2 item types are so rare that it is not feasible to assume this inclusion could in any way control the future direction the challenge takes, and it will also allow me to actually make use of a fabled or mythic if I am lucky enough to get one. The other thing I mentioned was dungeon exclusives. If you didn't know, there are just over a dozen items in the game that are exclusively obtainable through these falling emeralds and cannot be found in any chests dropped by any mobs, bought from any shop, or obtained from any quest. These items are quite rare and it could take a long time to acquire any of them. The Decrepit Sewers can award me a bow, a helmet, and a bracelet. The bow can't be used, the helmet is worthless at this stage in the game, but the bracelet is a little different. Vertebra gives +4 defense and a small amount of health. This would be an upgrade as I currently do not have a bracelet at all, and while it won't help much, it might be worth going for. Moving on to the Infested Pit, there are 3 bows, a ring, a bracelet, a necklace, and a chestplate. The bows are unusable. The ring provides a tiny bit of health regen at the cost of walk speed and main attack damage, so that doesn't help me. The bracelet gives 5 earth defense, +4 agility, and a small amount of poison. This makes the spider bracelet more useful to me than the vertebra, and something that might actually be worth farming for. The necklace gives +4 dexterity and a bit of main attack damage. This isn't bad, but it doesn't come close to comparing to Darum's Serenity in total stats given, so it's worthless to me. The chestplate is actually really strong, giving a large variety of stats, including +5 strength, +5 dexterity, and +10 agility. This chestplate is certainly something that might come in handy. The only problem is it is a legendary, and there are a total of 19 legendaries that can drop at this level, making it incredibly unlikely to drop if I get a legendary drop at all. So if I have to farm for it, I will, but I would rather not. Lastly, the only other dungeon available to us currently is the Sandswept Tomb, which can drop a pair of leggings and a bracelet. The leggings give a decent amount of health, some walk speed, and a moderate amount of poison. This makes Scorpion Tail an upgrade that would come in handy for this upcoming fight and is something I want to farm for. The bracelet gives a decent amount of health regen and a moderate increase to percentage of health regen with a fair bit of fire damage at the cost of water defense. This makes Ra my best bet for survivability, even if it isn't the best bracelet I could get. But as there are 25 legendaries that can drop from this dungeon, I do not want to farm for it. Looking at these items, I could spend dozens of hours farming just to get a couple upgrades that ultimately make little to no difference in this upcoming fight, and that's a bit disheartening, but I haven't looked at fabled items yet. Maybe one of these is available and helps me out. At level 40 and below, there are a total of 3 fabled items available. Vindicator, which I can't use as it is a quest reward. Philosopher, which if used in tandem with the Spring Trap from the Sandswept Tomb would allow me to have 100% reflection, and I could make the boss take an equal amount of damage every time it hits me. This would be really funny, but unfortunately wouldn't stop me from dying in a few hits, and the boss has too much health for that to swing the fight in my favor. The major ID on the leggings is also worthless to me, as Peaceful Effigy only works for Shaman. That just leaves one more item. Galloping Spurs. My personal favorite fabled item in the game, and the only item in the game with the major ID, Cavalryman. This major ID allows you to attack and cast spells whilst riding a horse with a 70% damage penalty. These boots are decently powerful in general, but with this major ID I actually have a solution to this boss. My main issue I have is either not being able to outrun his attacks or running out of sprint and being rendered basically immobile. But if I'm on a horse, I'll consistently be fast enough to outrun any and all attacks, and my sprint meter doesn't matter at all. With this discovery, I knew I needed to get the Galloping Spurs, as I'm incredibly unlikely to ever beat this boss without them. Because of how item drops work, if the drop source of the item isn't within 4 levels of the item in question, you cannot get it. These boots are level 40, so I needed a dungeon that was level 36 at the lowest and level 44 at the highest, and luckily for me, the Sandswept Tomb is level 36. This works in my favor, as I already planned to farm the dungeon for Scorpion Tail, and if I'm lucky, I could also get Ra while I'm at it. If my numbers are even remotely correct, this dungeon has a roughly 1 in 530 chance to drop a single fabled item. This is an obnoxiously absurd number of times to complete a dungeon, and it is only made worse when you consider that Philosopher is level 32, which is also exactly 4 levels away from this dungeon's level. That means that this dungeon has an equal chance to drop Philosopher as it does to drop Galloping Spurs, so I have a 1 in 1060 chance to get the boots upon completion of this dungeon. So with my goal in mind, I began the grind for Galloping Spurs. But was it worth it? Okay. I'm a little speechless at the moment. Got fabled. I'm gonna pick up my emeralds. Just don't freak out yet. Don't freak out yet. I don't want to get too excited and then be disappointed because this might not be it. I'm really worried because if I look at this and find that this is not the right item, I'm gonna be so upset. Because I did this for so long, only to just get the wrong one. Please, please, please. Is it boots? Yes! Okay, thank you. My god, that took so long. How many is that? 503. 503. God, that's so much. I got 4 more of these leggings too. Well, 4 more that cost 52 to identify. They could be pickpockets as well. They aren't necessarily Scorpion Tail. But that's 4 attempts at another upgrade. I got 13 legendaries in total through all of that, but only 1 of them was Ra, which is really annoying. I was hoping to get another one that maybe had like a really high health regen and % increase of health regen, but that's fine. It doesn't need to. Ooh, I'm so excited. Finally get to actually make this damn episode. I'm not even done. I still have to actually fight the damn boss and beat it, but now that I have this, I can. No, they're not upgrades, and I'm not gonna re-roll them to try and get them because they kind of have to be like perfect to be better. All right, how are the Galloping Spurs? 52%. What really matters is Cavalryman. You may cast spells and attack with a 70% damage penalty while on a horse. I want that. Yeah, I lose 38% main attack damage and 6 strength to wear this, so I do lose a lot of damage, but this will allow me to do things on a horse, which it will allow me to complete this boss altar, but it will do more than that, because it will make farming for things a lot easier, because as it stands right now, like, I'll ride the horse, and then when I go up and I want to kill, like, I find a thing that I need to kill, I have to hop off the horse, and then the horse usually gets in the way, and I have to fight it, and then I have to get on the horse again. Now I can ride the horse and fight things, which I will do a lot less damage when I'm on the horse, but it allows me to do things quicker, like farming for ingredients.
farming for keys because I don't have to get off the horse to kill the key guardian. So let's just go ahead and let's just buy a bunch of these, and then I'm just gonna sell them. Also, I turned off XP gain for the time that I was farming up the dungeon. I stopped myself at 50 and then gradually leveled up bit by bit because I kept forgetting to turn it back off when I hopped on this class. And then eventually it surpassed 51, which was really annoying because I didn't want it to. I wanted it to stay at 50. But I don't want to like do some long grind like that and then fight the boss that I'm trying to beat 20 levels higher than I intended to. Because if I had not turned off XP, I genuinely would have been like 65 or 70 at this point. And there we go. That is the last of them. We have 12.5 liquid emeralds. 51,000 emeralds almost. I guess it's time. Oh. Well then. Let's do this. And this is gonna be my life. I'm literally just going to kill it with smoke bomb. Come on, kill it. Yes! Oh my god, thank you. The potions were not necessary, I just did them because I wanted this to go faster. I didn't want to constantly be out of mana, and I didn't want to constantly be... I mean, I guess this probably didn't do much for the mana. No, 14 intelligence wouldn't have been enough. It needed like 20 something. But it would have given me more spell damage, which would have helped. More air damage. That's just more crit, more damage, and more earth damage. Okay, we successfully killed him once. I didn't get the fabled drop, which is a bow. If I was an archer, this fight would have been a piece of cake from the beginning, and that bow upgrade would have been absurd, but I am not. Because I chose not to play archer for this. And then this here is the Sundown Poncho. We're gonna head out of here and go see what this poncho's about. Identifier, let's see the stats on this. Stat of curiosity. So Sundown Poncho, honestly, if I'm using this, I'm gonna be using it for combat specifically. But then we got really high main attack damage, thunder damage, and fire damage. And it does actually give dexterity and thunder damage, so this might actually be useful. The -1 tier of attack speed, though, is kind of a pain. I think that's probably the best that I could have asked for. I don't know what exactly I want to use it for just yet, but it's definitely something I'll want to make use of. I guess it's time to go farm the Barrows Dungeon, get a couple gear upgrades, and then face off against one of the harder boss salters. Alright. Let's get going.